In the heart of ancient Athens, where people used to worship gods, there was a blind girl sitting alone on a street corner. She was selling handmade bracelets to earn money for her sick grandmother. No one stopped to help her until Keanu Reeves did. At first, he thought he was just buying a bracelet, but what happened next was something that would change lives forever. It was late at night, and the streets of Athens were glowing under the warm light of the street lamps. Keanu's film crew had finished working hours ago, but Keanu wasn't ready to go back to his hotel yet. He wore a gray hoodie with his hands in his pockets as he walked through the quiet streets of Plaka, the oldest part of the city. The old stone walls whispered ancient stories, and everywhere he looked, it felt like the gods had once walked there. He liked walking alone after a long day of filming. No cameras, no questions, just the peaceful night and the sound of his boots on the cobblestones. Athens at night felt alive but peaceful, full of memories. As Keanu turned onto a quieter street, he heard a soft, childlike voice calling out, "Bracelets, €2 for my grandmother." He stopped. The voice was quiet, almost like the wind, but it kept going, steady and persistent. He looked over and saw the girl. She was no older than 10 and sitting on a low stone step outside a closed bakery. Her dark hair was neatly braided down her back, and her eyes, they didn't follow him. Her eyes were pale and empty. In front of her was a wooden box filled with handmade bracelets. Some were colorful, some were uneven, but they were all made with care. Each one had a tag that said €2. Keanu walked closer. "Hi," he said softly. The girl turned her head toward him with a calm look on her face. "Would you like to buy a bracelet, sir?" "I made them myself," she said. Keanu crouched down beside her and smiled. "They're beautiful," he said, picking up a blue bracelet with uneven knots. "What's your name?" "My name is Eleni," she said, keeping her hands folded in her lap. "My grandmother is sick. She needs medicine, so I make these and come out at night when there are fewer people." Eleni spoke simply, without any sadness in her voice, just the truth. Keanu felt a tight feeling in his chest. This wasn't just a girl trying to sell things. This was a little girl trying to help her grandmother, and she wasn't asking for anything for herself. He took €2 out of his pocket and put it in the box. Then he slipped the blue bracelet onto his wrist. "Thank you, Eleni," Keanu said. "Thank you, sir," she answered, nodding her head. Keanu stood up, unsure of what to say next. He smiled at her, though she couldn't see it, and started walking away. But after about 20 steps, he stopped. He turned around to look at her again. She was still sitting there, alone, calling out into the night, not for herself, but for her grandmother. The strength in her voice, the courage in her words, it didn't feel like it came from a child. Keanu couldn't just walk away this time. He felt something stir inside him, something that wouldn't let him leave. He touched the bracelet on his wrist again. He had to go back. The bracelet was rough on Keanu's wrist. The knots weren't perfect and the cord was a little frayed, but he kept running his thumb over it. It wasn't about how it looked, it was about what it meant. Eleni's name stuck with him, like the scent of flowers in the warm Greek air. He couldn't forget her. The calm in her voice had touched him deeper than anything he had experienced before. He turned around again. Eleni was still sitting there, her legs tucked to the side, her hands resting beside the box as if it was a part of her. She was still calling out, offering her bracelets to anyone who would listen, but no one was stopping. A couple walked by without even looking at her. A man was talking on his phone. Even in a city full of spirit, people had learned to ignore what made them uncomfortable. Keanu crossed the street again, walking more slowly this time. He knelt down beside her again. "You're still here?" he said softly. Eleni tilted her head. "So are you." Keanu smiled. "I couldn't stop thinking about your bracelets." She paused. "You already bought one." "I want another one," Keanu said quietly. "Maybe a red one this time." Eleni carefully searched through the box with her small, confident fingers and found a red bracelet. "This one has 3 knots, she said. "I tried to fix it, but..." Keanu smiled and slipped the red bracelet onto his wrist, next to the blue one. They both sat in silence for a moment. Keanu could hear the faint sounds of the street, distant laughter, the sound of a scooter speeding by, the wind blowing through the streets. "Does your grandmother know you're out here?" Keanu asked gently. Eleni nodded. "She cries when I leave. She says I shouldn't have to do this." "Do you want to stop?" Keanu asked. Eleni's voice was small but strong. "She needs medicine. We can't afford it. I can't just sit and do nothing." Keanu felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't just a girl selling bracelets. This was a little girl fighting to help her grandmother, using whatever she could. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked. Eleni shrugged. Long enough to know most people don't stop. But sometimes someone does. Keanu didn't know what to say. Instead, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a 20-euro note. Without saying a word, he put it into the box. Eleni's fingers touched the bill and paused, confused. Why? She asked softly. Because someone needs to, Keanu said quietly. Eleni didn't say anything more. She just sat quietly, her hands resting on the box, ready for another long night. But Keanu wasn't going anywhere. This was now his fight too. The streets of Athens were busier now. More people were walking around, tourists looking for dinner, locals heading home, but most of them didn't notice the small girl sitting by the bakery. Some people walked by quickly, not looking at her. A man threw a coin in the box without stopping. A woman smiled but didn't say anything. Keanu couldn't stand it anymore. He couldn't let her sit there alone, calling out for help while no one noticed. He stepped out of the shadows and walked toward her, his boots echoing against the stone. Eleni didn't turn her head, but she could hear him. Her stick stopped tapping the ground as she sensed his movement. You again? She asked, not unkindly but cautious. Keanu crouched down to her level, this time without hesitation. Yeah, me again. Eleni tilted her head. The red bracelet didn't fit. Keanu smiled. I guess it did after all. They sat together for a little while longer in silence as the night around them kept moving. He laughed a little. It fits, but I thought I could help sell the rest, he said. There was a long pause. You want to help me? She asked slowly, like she was trying to understand if he was tricking her. Keanu nodded even though she couldn't see it. Yeah, I do. Why? She asked. Because I see you, Elaine, he said, his voice calm and steady. And no kid should have to do this alone. Before she could say anything, Keanu stood up and turned toward the street. Hey folks, he called out. His voice was smooth and confident, full of warmth. 2 euros for a handmade bracelet, best deal in Athens tonight. All made by this amazing young artist right here. Heads turned. It wasn't just what he said, but the way he said it, calm, kind, and strong, like someone who was used to being listened to. One man stopped, then a woman, then a couple with a dog. Coins dropped into the wooden box. Elaine sat frozen, unsure if this was really happening. Keanu handed out bracelets with a smile, sometimes with a wink, always keeping an eye on Elaine. Her hands started to shake, not because she was cold, but because of something new. It felt like hope. You're crazy, she whispered to herself. Maybe, Keanu said with a grin, tossing more coins into the box. But we're selling out tonight, kid. And they did. By the time the last bracelet was gone, Elaine's box was full. More full than it had ever been. Keanu knelt down again and gently put a hand on her shoulder. You did this, he said. I just helped. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Elaine believed him. Hey, if you're still with us right now, drop a 9 in the comments to let us know you're following the journey. We see you and we're glad you're here. The moon had risen higher in the sky over Athens by the time Elaine packed up her empty bracelet box. The streets were quieter now, with the sounds of glasses clinking and people laughing coming from closed cafes. Her fingers ran over the inside of the box, as if checking if what had happened was real. Every bracelet was gone. Every single one. Keanu walked beside her, a little bit behind, with his hands deep in his hoodie pockets. His thoughts were heavy. He watched her carefully tap her white cane across the uneven streets, each step slow but sure. She was guided more by habit than by sight. She was small, and the box now filled with coins and bills seemed to weigh her down more than he liked. Still, she didn't complain. She didn't falter. They walked through alleyways where old columns leaned into the night, and laundry swayed like ghosts from iron balconies. The city seemed to hold its breath, caught between myth and night. You know, Keanu said softly, you sold out faster than most of the pop-up shops on this street. Elaine gave a small smile. Maybe I should open my own boutique. Maybe you should, Keanu said, meaning it, as they reached a quieter corner near the edge of Plaka. She stopped and turned to him slightly. You're still following me? Yeah, Keanu replied, not bothered. I want to make sure you get home safe. Elaine hesitated, then pointed with her cane. It's just a little farther. The yellow building with the broken shutters. Keanu remembered it. His actor's memory helped him keep every detail. They turned a final corner and reached a crumbling 2-story house, stuck between taller, nicer buildings. The paint on the walls was peeling and one window was covered with cardboard. Elaine walked up to the door and stopped. She put her hand on the doorknob for a long time. She doesn't like when I come back late, she whispered. She'll understand tonight, Keanu said gently. Elaine took a deep breath and then turned to him. Thank you for everything. I don't know why you helped. Keanu knelt down so he was eye level with her. Because I've been where you are, in my own way, lost, scared, holding everything together for someone I love. She tilted her head. You don't look scared. I'm older now and I've had help. Everyone needs help sometimes. Elaine bit her lip. You're leaving, aren't you? Not yet, he said. But even when I do, I'll make sure you're not forgotten. Elaine didn't say anything. She just nodded slowly like she wanted to believe him, but wasn't sure she could. Keanu stood up, smiled at her one last time and watched as she opened the door. The light from the hallway flickered across her face before she stepped inside. Then she disappeared into the shadows. Keanu pulled out his phone. Yeah, he said into it, it's me. I need a favor fast. There were no cameras now, no script. Just a man with a red and blue bracelet on his wrist and a promise in his heart. Tomorrow everything will change. The sun rose gently over Athens, shining light on the Acropolis and warming the narrow streets of Plaka. The city slowly started waking up. Shutters opened, mopeds hummed to life, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air from bakeries. But on a quiet, crumbling street, something strange was happening. Elaine woke up to the sound of voices outside. She sat up on the thin mattress on the floor and reached for her cane. From the other room, her grandmother's quiet voice called out. Elaine, do you hear that? Elaine stood up, her heart beating fast. The sounds were getting louder, footsteps, tools clanking, and what sounded like a truck backing up. She walked carefully to the door and opened it. She froze. There, standing on the walkway in the morning sunlight, was Keanu Reeves, wearing his gray hoodie and with his sleeves pushed up. He raised his hand to greet her. Behind him were 5 people, unloading equipment from a van, hammers, toolboxes, a ladder, and a first aid kit. Among them was a woman in scrubs, talking quietly with one of the workers. Elaine's breath caught. What is this?" she whispered. Keanu stepped forward and crouched in front of her with his calm smile. "I told you I'd be back." From inside, her grandmother's voice cracked. "Who's out there, Elaine?" "It's him," Elaine said softly, still stunned. "The man from last night." A moment later, her grandmother came to the door, wrapped in a thin blanket, blinking against the morning light. Her eyes were full of confusion and fear. "We don't have anything to give you," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "You don't need to," Keanu said, holding up both hands in peace. "Your granddaughter already gave the world more than most ever do." The woman in scrubs stepped forward and gently touched Elaine's grandmother's arm. "I'm Dr. Isadora. May I come in? I'd like to check your heart just to start." Elaine's grandmother stared at them in disbelief. "What? Why are you doing this?" Keanu looked her in the eye, his voice low and steady. "Because no child should carry what Elaine carries alone. You've got help now." Tears filled the old woman's eyes. She reached out and rested a frail hand on Elaine's shoulder. "You did this," she whispered. Elaine shook her head slowly. "No, Grandma. He did." "No," Keanu said firmly. "We did." The team moved in slowly and carefully without rushing or causing any mess. One worker started fixing the cracked wall, and another one swept the broken tiles off the porch. Dr. Isadora helped the grandmother inside, checking her pulse as she walked. Evelyn stood by the door, feeling overwhelmed. This wasn't a dream or a movie. It was real. Keanu turned to her and crouched down again. "This is just the beginning, Evelyn. You're not alone anymore," he said. This time, Evelyn didn't just hear the words. She believed them. By the afternoon, the old house that had been falling apart was full of life and sounds of workers fixing it. You could hear the sound of hammers as new wooden beams were put into place. The broken tiles in the kitchen were gone, replaced with smooth new stone. The windows, which had cardboard on them, were now open, letting in sunlight and fresh spring air. Inside, the air smelled clean, like lemon oil and fresh paint. Evelyn had never smelled this in her house before. She sat on the floor in what used to be the coldest room in the house. Next to her was a small wooden box that Keanu had filled with supplies, colorful cords, tools for making things, and rows of carefully sorted colors. She had never seen these before, but now she could feel them. She touched everything with wonder. Keanu sat nearby, stretching his legs out and watching her quietly. He didn't need to say anything. The joy on Evelyn's face as she touched each new thing said more than words could. She picked up a small charm. "Is this a dolphin?" she asked. Keanu smiled. "Sure is. Do you think it will go on a bracelet?" Evelyn nodded and started threading the cord through it with ease. In the kitchen, her grandmother moved slowly, but she seemed stronger than she had that morning. Dr. Isadora had given her some medicines and a plan to check on her regularly. Now her grandmother stood at the counter, cutting soft carrots with shaking hands. "You don't have to cook," Evelyn said gently. "I want to," her grandmother replied, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "I haven't made dinner for us in so long." Keanu looked toward the kitchen and then back at Evelyn. "She's getting better already?" "She's smiling." Evelyn smiled too. I can hear it in her voice. Outside, the work continued. A new front step was added and the old roof was made stronger. Neighbors peered out from their balconies, amazed. Some of them even came over, offering help or warm pastries as thanks for what was happening to the little yellow house on the corner. As evening came, Evelyn sat on the rug making bracelets. They were spread around her like a rainbow. Her hands moved quickly now, full of confidence and joy. Her world was still dark in some ways, but inside her, something had started to shine. Keanu handed her a cup of warm tea and sat back. "You know, when I first met you, you were already fighting for her." Evelyn looked at him. "I didn't think anyone saw me." "I saw you," he said quietly. Evelyn reached into her box and pulled out a soft purple bracelet. "This one's for you," she said. Keanu took it, holding it like it was the most precious thing in the world. In that moment, under the warm light of the new lamp, their small home didn't feel like a place to hide from pain anymore. Felt like a new beginning. The next morning, Keanu came back to the little yellow house. This time, he wasn't carrying tools or supplies. Instead, he had a folded brochure in his hands. It was simple, with raised letters on the front and a hand-drawn sun. It showed an art program for kids with visual impairments, located just outside the city by the sea. Evelyn ran her fingers over the cover. "What's this?" "It's a place for kids like you," Keanu explained. "They teach weaving, sculpture, sound design, lots of creative stuff. No grades, no pressure. Just art, heart, and people who understand." Evelyn hesitated. "What if I mess up?" Keanu knelt down beside her. "Then you'll learn. That's how real artists work." She slowly nodded, her fingers brushing over the page. Her grandmother, now sitting at the table with more color in her cheeks, looked at Evelyn with soft eyes. "You should go." That afternoon, they took the tram together, and the city passed by as Keanu gently guided Evelyn's hand to the railings and to the seats, showing her the rhythm of something new. When they arrived, the center was full of quiet energy. Kids were making clay sculptures and you could hear laughter from a music room. Teachers were helping students with kindness and patience. At first, Evelyn held her cane tightly, but soon she met a girl named Lila, who cheerfully took her hand. "Do you want to make something weird with me?" she asked. Evelyn smiled. By the time Keanu came to pick her up, Evelyn was sitting at a low table, threading beads with great focus. Lila was next to her, talking away. The bracelet in Evelyn's hand was bold and more complex than anything she'd ever made. Her fingers moved quickly, showing how much she had learned. "She says, I'm good at this," Evelyn said, holding up the bracelet. Keanu grinned. "Told you so." Back at home, everything had changed. The house no longer felt heavy. Laughter was back in the kitchen. Evelyn's grandmother had started baking again, making small loaves of bread that filled the house with warmth. One evening, as Keanu arrived, he was greeted by the smell of rosemary and garlic at the door. "I made this," her grandmother said proudly, placing a loaf of bread on the table. Her hands didn't shake anymore and her voice was strong. Evelyn smiled. "She even made dessert." Keanu sat down with them that night, breaking bread and listening to stories of the past. Stories that had once been too hard to share but could now be told with the light that was slowly coming back into their lives. "You saved us," her grandmother whispered as she poured him tea. Keanu shook his head. "No, I just saw the spark. You lit the rest." "And Evelyn?" her grandmother asked. Evelyn wasn't just surviving anymore. She was shining. The sky over Athens turned pink as the sun began to set behind the Acropolis. The city was buzzing with life, but nothing felt more alive than what was happening in the Odeon of Herod's Atticus, the grand marble theater beneath the Parthenon. It had echoed with performances for centuries, but tonight, it would carry something different. Evelyn's Light Foundation was having its first gala. The steps were lined with candles and glass lanterns. Soft music played from a string quartet, and the air smelled of lavender and honey. Donors, journalists, and families filled the seats, many not knowing that the night's special moment wasn't a famous celebrity or speech. It was a 10-year-old girl who used to sell bracelets on the sidewalk. Backstage, Evelyn nervously fiddled with the hem of her dress. Her white cane rested beside her, and her fingers nervously played with the bracelet she had made that morning. It was deep blue with silver charms that made a sound when she moved. "I don't think I can do it," she whispered. Keanu knelt beside her, now dressed in a black suit instead of his usual hoodie. He put a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're not here to impress anyone," he said. "You're here to tell your story. And that's more than enough." Eleni swallowed and nodded. Then the host's voice echoed across the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the beginning of something extraordinary. Eleni's light is a foundation built on the courage of one little girl and the fire she lit in all of us." Keanu stepped into the spotlight. "A year ago, I met a girl selling bracelets under a street lamp. She was blind, cold, but had more fire inside her than I've ever seen. Her name is Eleni, and tonight she will speak for herself." He turned to the curtain and waved his hand. 1 year later, Eleni stepped into the light. The audience gasped, not because she was small or blind, but because she stood tall. She didn't shake or look afraid. When she spoke, her voice was soft but strong. "I used to think no one saw me," she said. "I was just a girl with a box trying to keep my grandmother alive." The audience became very quiet as Eleni continued. "I made bracelets because I had to, but now I want other kids like me, kids who can't see or kids who feel like they don't matter, to know they don't have to fight alone." She raised her bracelet into the air. "This is for them. To give them light like I got." The crowd stood up and clapped loudly. The sound echoed through the room. Sarah, Eleni's grandmother, stood near the front. Her hands were pressed to her mouth and tears shone in her eyes, but she was so proud. Keanu's throat felt tight as Eleni stepped back. She reached into her pocket, took out the blue bracelet, and handed it to Keanu. "For you," she said, "for stopping that night." He put the bracelet on next to the red one. "You're killing me, kid," he whispered, but his smile showed how much it meant to him. 1 year later, Eleni's light reached far and wide. The foundation had grown, offering medical help, homes that were easy to get into, and creative programs for kids with disabilities in Greece and beyond. But tonight, it all came back to where it all began, the Odin of Herodotus Atticus. The place shimmered under soft lanterns and banners read, "1 year of light." The walls were covered in pictures of kids laughing, painting, running, and reaching for their dreams. Backstage, Eleni sat on a low bench. She was a little taller now, and her hair was tied back in a braid. The blue bracelet she had once given to Keanu was now matched by a new one, with golden threads woven like stars. Her grandmother stood behind her, adjusting her dress. "He's proud of you," her grandmother said. "Dad?" Eleni asked softly. Her grandmother nodded. "Every moment." Keanu stepped in with his smile, worn but bright. "You ready?" he asked. Eleni nodded, still nervous. Keanu crouched beside her. "It's not about being perfect," he said. "It's about being real." She stood up, her white cane tapping lightly on the marble floor. The audience was full of families, some in wheelchairs, some holding canes, all drawn to this story and the spark on stage. Keanu spoke first. "A year ago, I met a girl under a street light, fighting for her grandmother with nothing but her hands and her heart. That fire started this. Tonight, it burns in all of you." He turned to Eleni. She walked up slowly but confidently. She gripped the microphone, took a deep breath, and began, "I used to sell bracelets because I didn't know what else to do. I thought I had to fix everything alone. But someone stopped, someone saw me, and everything changed." She paused, her fingers brushing the blue bracelet on her wrist. "I've learned that you don't have to see light to carry it. You just have to believe you deserve it. And now, I want to pass it on." The crowd stood up again, clapping, cheering, and some wiping away tears. Later, under the fading lights, Eleni stood between her grandmother and Keanu. Kids came up to them, offering bracelets of their own as gifts. The bracelets were symbols of new beginnings. One little girl whispered to Eleni, "You're like me." Eleni smiled and said, "We shine the same." As the crowd slowly left, Keanu looked out over the city. "Athens is different at night now," he said quietly. Eleni teased him. "Because of me." Keanu smiled. "Because of what you taught," he said, wrapping his arm gently around her shoulders. "One small act of kindness can change everything. A moment of courage can become a movement. And the smallest spark, even in darkness, can light the way for many." That night, as the lanterns flickered and laughter echoed under the old stone, the bracelet on Keanu's wrist shimmered softly. It was not just a reminder of a promise kept, but of a light that would never fade. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.